So I'm gonna make this quick. CJ here, Three Black Geeks. But anyways, so yeah, lots of information happening right now. So Sony and Marvel Studios are Marvel Disney, I should say, are button heads. Um, you'll probably see a lot of videos out here with people speculating the worst or speculating this or trying to say definitively this is what's happening and whatever and stuff. And to be honest, at least when it comes to this whole situation stuff, there are certain things you can pretty much lean in the direction of being true, and there's others where it's just speculation and people are going to speculate based on whatever they favor. So I want to be very fair about this because I feel on both sides of it and stuff you can understand it, but I feel more than anything else it's kind of one of those you have to observe and really look deep down on it. So anyways, so basically right after Amazing Spider-Man 2, Sony was pretty much in a bit of a debacle, so to speak, when it came to Spider-Man. Now, Kevin Feige, if you know who he is, he's pretty much had a hand in all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and such. And there was a lot of stories coming out right around the time of the Amazing Spider-Man movies where Kevin Feige had was basically being consulted by Sony and stuff. And I believe some of that came out in email leaks as well. So this isn't like speculation. These are like stuff you can Google online pretty easily and you'll find it. But they will always come to Kevin Feige proponents because right around the time of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, the MCU is like kicking ass, taking names, raking in money, critically lauded by everybody and loved by everybody and stuff. So Sony came to him just like, hey, what should we do? What directions we should do and stuff like that, whatever and stuff. And you can tell in certain aspects of the Amazing Spider-Man movies where it could be in. Just certain aspects of it. But anyways, coming off Amazing Spider-Man 2, where that was during a period of time where Sony was just throwing shit at the wall, like, oh, we're going to get a Morbius movie. We're going to get an Aunt May movie. Oh, we're going to do Black Cat and Silver Saber movie and all that stuff. We're going to get a Venom movie. And everybody's like, oh, okay, this is Sinister Six. So many things that they had. And I think out of the whole thing, like I said, we got the Venom movie that came out, which I'll get to in a minute. But all these things were coming out. And Amazing Spider-Man 2 did the money that it did. Now it made, if I remember correctly, $790 million, whatever. And what you end up finding out is that Sony pretty much went way over budget with that movie to the point that despite it making $790 million, it only profited Sony $70 million just because of all the stuff, the marketing and everything that encompasses. So in terms of Spider-Man and Sony, it left them in a bit of a debacle, so to speak, on what we're going to do going forward. So cut to Civil War. There was rumors going around that Sony and Marvel Studios made a deal with Spider-Man, and then boom, we saw Spider-Man and Civil War trailer, and we ended up finding out that they did broker a deal, and the deal was pretty much essentially, the Spider-Man movies and such, Sony nets majority of the profit. I believe they get 95% of the profit, and Marvel Disney gets 5%. Now, if you really look at the movie, understand the MCU Spider-Man films, you have to really look at it like this. These are movies that inherently you can tell majority of the direction and everything was very influenced by the MCU. Those movies were influenced by the MCU. Peter has his relationship with Tony, him having his relationship in Far From Home with Nick Fury, and just his interaction with the other Avengers and stuff. So you factor that aspect. You factor the fact that the general audience loves Spider-Man in Civil War. We love them in Homecoming. Love them in Far From Home. Love them in Infinity War. Love them in Endgame. And just all these things. And people are loving it because they love the aspect of the interaction that Spider-Man is having with these heroes and stuff, much like the comics and such. And then, Disney just bought Fox, which means that Fantastic Four and X-Men are back in the MC, with Marvel Studios, Disney proper and such. And now that opens up to, oh shit, Spider-Man can chill with the Fantastic Four because that is a relationship that's in the comics. Oh man, he can maybe be with the X-Men, which he does have a relationship with X-Men, with people like Kitty Pryde and Logan. So it's all these perfect storm of like, oh man, this is gonna be great. This is a great union between the two, and then boom, we cut to now, and the union is basically in basically in it's basically in, how should I say, posturing mode for both parties and such. So here's why I say that, like, to be fair to both sides, this is where it goes. So on Sony's end, let's look at Sony's end. All right, you have a franchise where Marvel Studios pretty much dictated everything, and you're counting the money. You counted all the money from it. So Sony, while they netted that $2 billion that they got from both Spider-Man movies combined, it still was like, yo, these are MCU movies. This isn't our movie, so to speak. But whatever. But on the other end of this and stuff, they made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Critically lauded by our audience and critics and stuff. People loved it, beloved and everything and such. Got an Oscar out the deal. So that's a huge deal. Then on the other end, you put out a Venom movie. Now, if you ever listen to our podcast and such, we did a spoiler Venom movie review. I did a review of Venom, did a spoiler discussion on the movie. I wasn't really fond of that movie at all. And that's me watching it again for the second time and really just watching it, and it just didn't jive right with me. It just, to me, was not a great film. But clearly, it made $870 million, which, to be honest and stuff, it making that money had a lot to do with, one, it came out in October. There was no other release between then and when Aquaman and, the other movies came out in December. So it had no competition. People, if you really think about the general audience and stuff, anything that's not the norm of what they see, they're going to gravitate to. Venom was not something that, it was something that was different than what we were getting out of the MCU. And not even different in the good way, just different in the aspect that it felt like it was just being different for the sake of being different. Understandable, whatever. But again, you made your $870 million with Venom, Oscar with Into the Spider-Verse. Cool. And then you're making your money on the Spider-Man PS4 game, with Sony buying Insomniac. So clearly, there's the perfect storm of everything they did with Spidey is starting to come to fruition, but it's just on the other aspect of the live action side, though. It's just kind of very touch and go. So you're not making money off of it. You have all this leverage and such. You have this Morbius movie coming out. So Sony is in a position to where they show that they can do a Spider-Man movie without Spider-Man movie with Venom, clearly, and stuff. But like I said, I feel this is nothing but short term, because I don't think the Venom sequel is going to do as great, even with Andy Serkis on board. But hey, I would love to be wrong. On Disney side, you had an input in Spider-Man being beloved by everybody, to the extent that you can sit there and roll in and flex 50-50 and such. So that makes sense. Perfect sense. So Disney, on a certain level, has that leverage over Sony, and they also basically tricked Sony, and it put them in a bit of a situation, so to speak, just on the aspect of, hey, we're doing your Spider-Man movie, and then you have the opening logo with the new Marvel Studios brand logo with Spider-Man intertwined with it and such. You got Spider-Man interacting with Tony Stark. Like, all this stuff that Disney put in, it kind of put Sony in a bit of a debacle, because how do you walk all that back in your next movie and you're not connected to the MCU? You see what I'm saying? So it just doesn't jive right between, to which I feel all this is nothing but posturing on both sides, and they're going to have to come to some sort of agreement. There ain't no getting around that shit. They're going to have to. But like I said, a lot of people online are making a lot of speculation, and it's just really ridiculous. But it's to me, the whole debacle just comes down to the fact that at the end of the day, a deal is going to end up getting made to where it's fair for both parties. That's really what this all is. And none of this is negotiate. All this is just negotiating tactics one-on-one, So, but yeah, it's just, to me, I feel people just grossly underestimate certain respects to how deals are made. And like, yes, while Homecoming and Far From Home are movies that are under the Sony banner, it's clearly an MCU film through and through. And you just can't get around that. And I think that's the hurdle that, and this is all provided that this deal really doesn't go the way it should go. It's going to be very tough. If the deal goes the way it goes and both parties come to an agreement, then hey, the MCU Spider-Man money train is going to keep going. If it doesn't result in that, I can see the situation where you're going to have just, I think people underestimate general audience and how people take to certain things. And that's why I said Disney Marvel did the smartest thing in getting people really ingrained on seeing people and other characters interact with the characters that they set forth. So I'm not saying that Marvel Disney needs Spider-Man, because clearly they started off this MCU without their big guns with Spider-Man and with the X-Men, and you know, they started with those characters and without Spider-Man. Like, they started with these characters in Fantastic Four. They started with all these characters to the extent to where they had to sit there and push characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, sell you on Hawkeye, sell you on Black Widow, sell you on Doctor Strange, sell you on all these characters because they didn't have their big guns. And now that they got Sony, they had this deal with Sony and stuff. Now it's like, hey, I would love to sit there and have this character on our side. And that's why I said when it comes to seeking short term, while Sony is making all this money in the short term, if you look at the long term, hey, wouldn't you like to see this character continue interacting with the Fantastic Four and other characters while he's dealing with his own story? Because you guys are going to make a lot of money. You know, so it's, to me, this whole debacle really comes down to just where both companies stand at. Some people are saying Disney is greedy. I don't think they're greedy. I think they're just doing regular negotiating. Period. You know, they're doing what they gotta do. Ain't nothing to really get around that. So, yeah, that's all I really kind of wanted to say about it and such. I think it's the aspect of don't think the worst. Everything's speculation, but for right now, negotiation is still intact. And I think if we continue pushing this whole idea that something is going in this direction, thinking the worst and stuff. And look, Sony, you know, the first two Spider-Man movies were great. Third one, not so much. Amazing Spider-Man 1 was interesting and enjoyable for what it was, but there was clearly a lot of cuts in it. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was not that great. So you're talking about a franchise that has 2 out of 5. Starting out 2 out of 5 movies. And then you add in Far From Home and Homecoming. Okay, you have 4 good movies, but 2 of them you can clearly say that was your guys' hand, and then the other 2 you can say that it was more Marvel Disney's hand. You know, but like I said, a lot of this is just, we'll see how it plays out, and hopefully they come to an agreement that everybody is happy and such, which I'm pretty sure that's what this whole thing has really come down to. So, but yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about the subject and such. I might come back and revisit this again and such, probably in podcasting form, but I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts out there on this whole debacle. So, yeah, peace.